Hello and welcome. Today we are going to study emails. Emails is referred as electronic mail. Electronic mail is a medium of communication that sends and receives messages through specially designed computer networks. Emails are used for quick transmission of information and idea. In today's technology-driven era, we certainly require email etiquettes. Why? Emails are an integral part of written communication. As we have studied LSRW, that stands for listening, speaking, reading and writing, where listening stands at first, speaking stands at second, reading at third and at last writing. But when it comes to the offices, it goes contradictory, where writing stands at first. So in offices, we must write more. In order to write more, we need to save our time as well. So in order to save our time, we need to use emails, electronic mails. There are so many advantages of email. So why do we require email? We are going to discuss the advantages of email. Why? First is speed. An email is very quick, where when we draft a letter, it takes long time to write and to send that letter to the one who is going to receive it. And if the person is sitting very far, then it takes a long time. Whereas we have a facility of internet where through this we can use an email and we have it as very speedy. So we can send an email very fastly to the one whomever we wish to send. Next advantage that we have as email is low cost. It is very cost effective. When we draft a letter, we need to write on a piece of paper. So we require a paper, we require a pen, we require time, we require so many other things, right? But when it comes to draft an email, we just require a computer set and we need to draft an email over there, and with the help of internet connection, we can send it. So it is very cost effective. Next is quick distribution. Via an email, we can write a letter to a number of people. Example, the same email can be distributed to many people altogether. Whereas, if in case we are writing a letter, we need to write the same letter to different people on different pieces of papers. So, an email works as a quick distribution tool where we can send the same email to many people altogether. Next advantage that we have is that's flexibility. It is very flexible that we can send the same email to number of people. Not only this, but we can write, we can edit, we can forward, we can delete and so on with the help of computer set. So this is called flexibility. Not only this, if in case we find any error in the typing, we can change it also. Those are termed as typographical error. We can check grammar, we can check the sentence construction and other things as well with the help of computers. So this is first part of it is flexibility through the grammar check and the punctuation check and the drafting of the email. Next component that we have as an advantage is easy attachment. We can easily attach many files in an email, as we can attach one letter, we can attach a PPT, PowerPoint template presentation, we can attach an audio visual clipping, we can add an other thing also in an email. Next is easy upward communication. Suppose we want to talk to a person working in a company at hierarchy. To talk to the person as a senior position, we need to first of all take an appointment and then we will be able to talk or communicate with that person, and it takes time. One more thing, there is no guarantee that the person sitting at hierarchy would be listening or reading to our letter or our communication. But when we write an email to the same person, that person not only reads but also responds to that email. So this is the advantage of an email. Now we come back to the next component, that is characteristics of a successful email message. First is clarity. The email that we draft has to be very clear. The typing has to be very clear. The message that we want to convey has to have a clear meaning. Next is concise. It doesn't matter how much we write, what matters is how good we write. So we are supposed to write very nicely but in compact manner. So that is the next point, that is conciseness. Third is correct. The message that we send through an email has to be correct. The information that we are imparting to the receiver has to be correct. There has to be no flaw in the message, in the sense of the facts, figures, statistical data and analytical data has to be correct. Definition can never be changed. Next is conversational. The tone of an email has to be conversational. It has to be relaxed. It has to be communicative. The one who receives must feel that you are interacting with that person. Yes, but one point to be remembered here, that it cannot be informal in tone. It has to always follow a formal communication. Next is concrete. The message that we convey via an email has to be concrete. There has to be nothing apart from the concreteness of the message. Whatever we want to convey to the receiver of the email, that has to be given appropriately in an email. That's called the concreteness of the message. Next is candidness. Next is candidness. The message that we impart by an email has to be candid. Candid means the information that we are imparting has to be finally imparted. We should not think before we are sending that the message that we are sending, shall we hide the information? No, we should not hide the information. It has to be frankly imparted over the person who is receiving it, and that's called candidness. Next is completeness. The last C of 7 C's of communication says that we need to complete the message. The information that we are imparting via an email has to be complete. The thematic background must have a completion. The person, in order to receive the email, must understand that the message has been completed, been given to him. And that's what the last component of 7 C's of communication, we have completeness. And the additional component, that is the characteristic of successful email, is single theme. An email must follow a single theme. We cannot add any other information apart from the subjective matter. The subject of the email must remain same till the end of the email. So we cannot add anything else as an extra while drafting an email. Now we come to the components of an email. Components of an email start with heading. The heading includes date. The date line comes automatically. Generally, we have automatically generated date line that includes the day, timing, date and the year. So we need to avoid redundancy. We must not write the date in an email because it is automatically generated. Next is from. From is the one who is the sender. Suppose if I, being a sender, send an email, then the recipient will be getting my name. How? Suppose my email ID is richardmaguire12@gmail.com. This message will be conveyed to that person and the recipient of the email will be getting as Richard Maguire, because that will be the registered name of the email. So the recipient of the email gets the name first and in brackets the email ID. That is the from. Next is to. To is the one whom we are sending to. The email is being to send the person, in which we write down the email ID of the recipient, whomever we want to send the message or an email. Subject. The subject line has to be very concrete. It must not be in bold, because everything in bold says authoritative nature. It states the authority. So we cannot be authoritative while drafting an email. Only if there is a requirement to write the subject in capitals, we must use, otherwise we must not use anything in capital letters. So this is the subject line, and subject line must convey the proper meaning of the email. Next is CC. The CC stands for carbon copy. That means if we want to convey the same message to other people, we can include those people in the CC. So we can write their email IDs in the CC, and this can be sent to many people altogether. The third component of the same tag is to CC, and the last third is BCC, that is blind carbon copy. As the name suggests, blind carbon copy, it means it is blind. Only the recipient of the mail and the sender of the mail knows about the sender and the receiver of the BCC. But apart from this, the email ID who has been added into or carbon copy will not be knowing that whom has this BCC been marked. So only the recipient of BCC would be knowing and the sender. Professionally, it is advisable to not to use BCC. So there is an information for you that while drafting an email, we must not blind carbon copy. Next component is salutation. Salutation includes Dear Dr. Bright. So dear and so components, including the heading that is termed as salutation. It means we need to wish or greet that person. It can be with dear, it can be with Mr., directly Mr., or other things as well. Now we come back to the body. The body of an email message describes, explains and discusses the idea of an email. The content of the email should be organized carefully. The first paragraph may begin with a friendly opening followed by a statement of the main point. However, this statement can be friendly, but we cannot be informal, as I told you earlier also, because an email generally in offices is a part of professional communication. Professionally, we cannot use casual communication. So we will always remember that we cannot write hi. We will always use dear, Mr. and the surname. In the next few paragraphs, justifications should be continued along with the background information and supporting details. The closing paragraph should state the purpose of the email and in some cases request some type of actions. Means here we can rewrite whatever we have conveyed in the previous paragraphs and then the message can be completed. Next component is complementary clause. An external email message may be concluded with an appropriate closing, as the best regards, kind regards, regards, sincerely, yours sincerely, thank you and regards, all the best, and so on so. We can, in some occasions, we can write with best wishes as well. This is called the complementary clause, as it is a compliment to the recipients. Signature block. The signature line in an email message generally contains only the writer's name. Exactly. When we draft an email, during the signature block, we can only write as a sender our name. We must not include any other information, but officially we must include other things as well. Like, we can write down our name, our designation, company profile, and the contact details as well. Remember, we can write our email address as well, but the other email address, as the email address would already be reflected on the email. So what is the need of redundancy? In order to avoid it, we will not write the email address again in the email. However, it may sometimes include the structure of an email message as well. Now there are some important points to be remembered. Follow established email conversation. Example is, when we receive an email, generally we need to reply that email. We should not compose any new email to answer the same sender. We must use the same email that we have received to send the message. That will be a reply. It builds up a concrete conversation. The recipient feels that I got an answer from the same mail. That will be, and it is benefited for future references as well, as we'll be clicking just one mail and other emails will be just a click away. Next is check emails daily. we need to check our mailbox daily, that if in case we have any urgent mail, we may not skip it. We must not answer it later on. It has to have the quick answer. Next is be correct. While composing an email, we should be correct. Like the email address to the sender has to be correct. We just a single spelling error can send the same email to somebody else and the information can be misled. Next is be brief. As I told you earlier, we cannot be more in writing. Writing more cannot make an effective writing. An effective writing is lesser writing, but the meaning should be conveyed. The message has to be imparted. Be formal. Once again, while drafting an email in offices, we cannot be casual. So informal communication has to be avoided and the formal form of communication has to be used. Maintain readability. While drafting an email, the readability has to be maintained. As to be a reader, would we be able to read the message? Suppose there are many people, those who are not able to understand the same communication, because our communication has some different usage of words. Those words have to be simplified. So we cannot make the reader read the same text easily by using the words that we use in our offices. So we need to maintain the readability. Care about the tone. Yes, the tone has to be conversational. We need to take care of our tone. Sometimes people take the tone otherwise, and tone can be maintained with the commas as well. Punctuation marks can play a vital role in maintaining the tone of the text message. Answer all the question and preempt further questions. The question in an email have been asked to you. You must reply all the questions properly. And in order to avoid the future questions, we need to preempt the further questions. Fulfill the query of the sender of the email before they ask further questions. Next is make it professional. An email has to be certainly made professional. It has to appear professional. We need to take care of all the components professionally and perfectly. Do not write in capitals. I told you already that we cannot write in capital letters, as capital letter writing shows authoritative nature. Next important point to be taken care of is avoid using urgent and important. Using urgent and important can be done only if required. Why? It shows again authority. People those who receive can think that you are a little authoritative in nature. So in order to avoid that misconception from the reader's mind, you must avoid using words urgent and important in the subject line. Keep your language gender neutral. Generally what happens that we people never realize that our language is gender bias. We use the language that is male oriented language. We set some examples where we say only he as an example. So when we are not aware of the recipient's gender, so that time we must write he/she, Mr. oblique Miss, because we are not aware of the receiver's gender. That's called being gender neutral. Next is do not use emails to discuss confidential information. However, email can be used as a very comfortable tool of conveying the information. But confidential information cannot be imparted, as the owner has all the right to see the emails. The one who is the wholesale in charge of that website can anytime log into your ID and can access to that information. Generally, people do not do, but it is considered and said that the information which is confidential must not be imparted to the receivers via an email. It has to be written on a piece of paper and has to be sent as a letter. Do not attach unnecessary files. There is a certain limit to attach files on an email. What happens sometimes that we try to attach more files, and since that site doesn't allow to attach that heavy file, we fail to impart that information which is important as attachment. So try to avoid attaching unnecessary files in the same email. Answer swiftly. The last component is answering swiftly. Whenever you receive an email, try to answer that email absolutely by the time, because the recipient would not be waiting for the same email for a longer period. We must show that we have read the email and we favor that email and we need to respond that email as well. However, that email can say a no as well. We being employers sometimes do not respond to the senders. Example, when somebody applies for a job, the receiver of the mail doesn't reply because doesn't find that person appropriate enough to be employed in the organization. But that is not correct. There can be a no, but still an answer has to be given. Remember, the euphemism has to be taken care of. We cannot bluntly say no. We must say no, but with a good note. Since the company doesn't require such highly qualified people, we are saying sorry to not to hire you. This can also be the answer, but answer certainly and swiftly. And here we are completing the topic emails. Thank you.